In this lecture, we'll focus on one of the largest problems, most highest frequency of a health challenge that we have in the United States. And it is storage of excess energy because you can take the energy and glucose and amino acids, and in a single molecule of triglyceride, put a lot more energy into this, and it's stored as fat in the body, and too much of it's called obesity. I wish I could say that the benefits that have developed to burn this excess fat was a goal of our research. But to tell the truth, in medical school, I came under two influences. One was that it's a waste of time to talk to a patient. They haven't been through science courses, much less medical school, and they don't know anything about disease or syndromes. That what you do is you draw a lot of blood, do multiple tests in the laboratory, and then x-rays or even better, scans, and you find out what's wrong, and then you turn to pharmaceuticals to correct it. The other type of influence I came under is if you could communicate with the patient in terms and language that the patient understands, that you can interview the patient and they can tell you what the problem is in their body. You have the education to put a diagnostic term to it, but they will tell you what their problem is, and you only use the laboratory and radiology department to confirm and follow improvements or deterioration in whatever the problem is. Well, in this thing about obesity, I have to tell you that just listening to various individuals over and over again, particularly male and female physicians, nurses, medical technologically educated people, probably carried more weight with what I heard, but the average person can tell you that if they found something that works, you ought to listen to them. And in fact, that's what we're going to go through today as we focused on what individuals informed us that the active ingredient from the aloe vera leaf gel plant apparently has a biochemical function to turn the metabolism in the body into a position to start burning excess fat. And that we will go through different things of what the benefits of this are. So we'll go to the first slide now. As we turn to the first slide, we try to give some dimensions of just how big a problem is obesity in our society. And it's a bigger challenge than all the different diseases, cancer, Parkinsonism, Alzheimer's, diabetes. Obesity is a bigger problem in society. And some of the sources of estimates that the one I found was that 42% are overweight, and yet some sources say it's over 50% now. But 20 years ago, it was no more than around 30%. And it's estimated that 25% are morbidly obese. And if you look around, anytime you see a crowd, you will see individuals that even at the distance, you can tell they are many pounds overweight. And we'll get into a little more about all the additional health challenges this causes. But it's a stress on the physiology of the body. And there is one overriding cause for this, and it's the overabundance of food and the reduction in daily labor. As I was driving to my office this morning, I was thinking about my grandmother, who on wash day would go out with an axe and start cutting up wood to make what she'd call kindling to put around a great big steel or iron container. And she would pump with her hand water after she had primed the pump to the well, and with a bucket fill that big container with the fire going around it with water. And then she would put the clothes in it and add chunks of soap that she had made, and with a stick and a thing on the bottom, agitate the water with the clothes in it to get the soap and water into it. And then very few people even know what a washboard looks like now, but if it wasn't too hot, she would put a washboard in on the side of it, and with her arms going back and forth, rub the clothes to get them the dirt loose and clean. Then she would squeeze this wet cloth with her hands, again, a labor, to get the soap out and go into water that didn't have soap in it, several washings. And that wasn't the end of it. She would have to take this heavy wet clothes out to the clothesline with clothespins, put them on the line, and then after they had dried, then go out there and go along and bring them and fold them and bring them into the house. A lot of labor and a lot of walking with the large muscles in your legs, getting all this done. By the time my mother came along, I think of the kind of square washing machine that originally had a small gasoline engine that was replaced by an electric motor that had an agitator in there that you could put the water in that was hot, and it would automatically work the cloth in the hot soapy water. And then lo and behold, there were rollers that went to the motor, and it would squeeze the soapy water out and go into 3 tubs built around in kind of a circle. And each time as it went from one tub to the next, it went through the rollers that you didn't have to use your hands and arms to get the rinsing done. And then you went to the clothesline again. But now my wife has a washing machine that you just dump the clothes in, put a little amount of soap in a little container on the side, and it agitates and even can go fast like a centrifuge to get the water out of it. And after it's gone through a cycle, you just move the clothes over to a dryer and push a button both times. Push a button to start the washing machine, push a button for the dryer, and just take the dry clothes out. And we don't even have a clothesline at our house. That's just one example of the reduction in labor inside the home. And of course, parallel to this, my grandfather was out there on the bottom 40 acres with a horse or a mule working in the field. And then they came to tractors, and I got to thinking that even now you can get down at the grocery store food that's already seasoned and frozen, and you just pop it into a microwave and put it on the table all too often. And there's a great reduction in labor in our country now. Now, I was a medical director for Man Relief Ministries that had a goal to make more comprehensive nutrition available to children whose parents could never afford the cost of more comprehensive nutrition. And we had African orphanages, and on an email, I got a request, do you have anything for obesity in orphan children? I was shocked when that came in. And so I began to communicate with him. How in the world? Because I had this picture in my mind of skin stretched over bones of almost starving children. And here he talks about something for obesity. And what he said was that the different nations have increased agriculture production. And now that there are sources through governments and not for profits, and particularly religious groups, that bring abundant caloric nutrition to orphanages in third world countries, but it's without balanced nutrition. In other words, you don't have the fruits and vegetables, you have primarily the rice or the wheat or the soybean type material that are sourced primarily for caloric energy, but not balanced nutrition, which the genes call for to make compounds to move the biochemistry and physiology to the normal zone. And it's not normal to be overweight and have too much fat stores in the body. And this is interesting because in 1952, I had a year of agricultural education, and they were pointing out that you could take the arable acreage in the world and multiply it by the production amount. Like for corn, it was more like 75 to 100 bushels per acre was typical successful corn production. And they had the figure 1984 as a point in the future that the ability to produce food for people on planet Earth would be exhausted, and we would have to start taking people that died and reduce them to nutrient material. That's what the movie and the book Soylent Green came from. And that the population would be excessive of what could be produced from acreage. Well, of course, that didn't happen because now they have used fertilizers and selection of seed, and also intervention with plant genes, that having 100 to 200 or more bushels per acre is common, and they put the corn plant the rows closer together, the plants closer to each other, and they even chose seeds that instead of one ear of corn, they might have 3 or 4 ears of corn on one stalk. And so there's been a major increase in production of foodstuff, but we're still eating just about the same amount, and without the labor to burn it, it's being stored. And this last thing about how in the third world countries, the nutrition is so much better than it was for calories. It's a good example how they tell you in economics that all ships float higher in a rising sea, and the improvement in agriculture and economic systems in the developed countries has influenced the quality of life in third world countries, and right along with that has been nutrition. And so the economic prosperity of the United States and other developed countries has had a worldwide impact. And that's kind of an overview of the problem with obesity. Now, one of the real common problems with obesity is high blood pressure. And under Medicare, the typical cost for drugs is about $1,300 a month. This is one of the reasons I keep saying, if you got a health challenge, you got a financial challenge, particularly if there's anybody in your family, adult or child, that has to be seeing a professional medical person on a regular basis. That's a drain on the income. And if a person quits taking their high blood pressure, there's very commonly they even gain more weight. And you've got to change your diet and your lifestyle to benefit the problem with obesity, because with obesity you have higher cholesterol and lipids in the blood, which leads to narrowing of the arteries called atherosclerosis with deposits of fatty material, and the blood can't progress through the vessels as well, and this leads to problems in the brain with strokes, through the vessels going to the kidney with kidney failure, and then the vessels in the heart. The highest incidence of heart attacks is the #1 cause of males in the United States. But also, the World Health Organization points out that worldwide, due to all this increased nutrition, that diabetes 2 is a problem, and diabetes 2 is generally accompanied by excess fat stores, and the metabolism is shifted with this excess nutrition to increase the amount of fat in the body, which your various organs have to provide oxygen and blood supply and nutrients. And then the kidneys have got to process the waste materials that come from these excess cells in the body that are obese. And so the World Health Organization said we have a virtually silent epidemic of type 2 diabetes in all the developed countries. And of course, it's even extending to some of the third world countries where obesity is a problem. Also, obesity causes problems with your breathing rate, your chest. There's a higher incidence of asthma and sleep apnea at night, where people have an episode that they get slower and slower with their breathing, and they have oftentimes come awake and have to gasp for breath. And part of this problem is that if you don't breathe quite well, that the blood circulating through the lungs doesn't pick up oxygen right, and this puts oxygen stress on your cardiac muscles and all your muscles of your body. Also, obesity leads to a higher incidence of hip fractures, and worst of all is falling and hitting your head and causing a brain injury. Also, obesity causes increased gallbladder disease and pancreatitis. And I wanted to point out that there is a worldwide or nationwide industry fighting obesity. And on Central Broadcasting System, CBS 60 Minutes, very popular, had a positive segment on Wegovy drug for obesity. And it was very outstanding. I'll give you a little details of it, but most important, they had 2 medical experts that were interviewed, and they couldn't say enough good about this new drug for obesity. But they found out after it was over that each of them were receiving over $100,000 a year consultant fees from the company that makes this drug. So in the modern era, you got to be real careful about sources of information, because oftentimes the individual speaking is being paid to say positive things. This is what was part of the program on 60 Minutes, that they had a 2-year thing. And at the top of this slide, we have the paper that was published, the 2.4 milligrams versus of this Wegovy, which is a semi-glutide that used to control eating in adults that are overweight. And it was a large study. They had 1,961 people, which only 92 dropped out because of adverse symptoms, which is about 7% dropped out. And if you'll drop down to that asterisk, you can see the reason they dropped out was nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, constipation, headaches, fatigue, dizziness, depression, and other less common complaints. Well, the ones that stayed with it had an average loss of 35 pounds or 15% of their body weight, whereas the controls that did not get this new wonderful drug that they were promoting, there were 20 in number, and they lost only about 6 pounds trying to get them all to do the same thing, and that's only 3.1% of their body weight. Now, those symptoms up there, you ought to remember that the father of Western pharmacology, Paracelsus, most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose. And pharmaceuticals have their effect because they poison the engineering and design biochemistry that's centered in the code in DNA or our genes. And this is how you get their effects. But since they are designed to interfere with the normal biochemistry of life, they cause symptoms. And of course, the ideal drug is if you stop taking it, that your symptoms return. So that's good business, but you may detect that I have an adverse feeling about exploitation of the price of new drugs that are in patent. Now, by contrast, nutrient molecules support the code of life in DNA, that DNA controls cellular synthesis of bioactive compounds that eliminate the cause for the symptoms. In other words, nutrients work with and support the code of life rather than poisoning it. And the code that is in the genes or DNA is to seek balance or homeostasis or in all cells of all systems. And in homeostasis, you don't have excess fat storage. You have a balance that you burn most or a significant amount of the calories you intake. And this is one of the reasons in our modern era, we have nearly every community, one or more commercial gymnasiums that have all kinds of devices to work your muscles, particularly in your legs and your arms, to burn excess calories that come from our continuing to eat the same amount, even though the work that's done daily has been greatly reduced. Now, Wegovy is called a semiglucoside peptide, and it's one of the hormones secreted by the GI tract that responds to food that comes into the GI tract, and it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, and it is a down regulator or turns down activity, and it reduces the amount of glucose in the serum. And there is a receptor for this that is called a GLP-1, and this GLP-1 reduces insulin resistance and increases insulin production, and that's why this is of benefit in type 2 diabetes accompanied by obesity, because in diabetes there's very commonly the insulin doesn't work as well to transfer glucose out of the serum into the cells and burn it. That's called insulin resistance. And it even decreases the production of insulin in the, it increases the production of insulin, which is a desire in diabetes to try to drive glucose into the cells and to burn it for energy. And of course, you've got to be moving around and active to burn this energy, which cause our skeletal muscles are the number one source of burning calories. And so in type 2 diabetes, you have a shift in the metabolic balance to promote obesity, as well as obesity causes type 2 diabetes. And so you need to approach this by burning more energy and reducing nutrient molecules. Now, is there a solution for chronic obesity? I frequently say diets don't work, and even the surgery doesn't work. Time and time again, I have seen particularly nurses in the hospital that are 100 or more pounds overweight, and they go on diets and they lose 25 pounds, and then when they go off the diet, they gain 35 or 40 pounds afterwards. And just going on a fad diet is not a way to approach chronic obesity. And also, I have seen individuals that have had transformation of their bowels by surgery to reduce the absorption of calories, and they'd lose 150 pounds and look like they did when they got out of high school, but they did not change their diet or their activities, and 1 to 2.5 years later, they're just back, just as big as and fat as they were before the surgery was done. And this is part of the reason that you need to change your attitude and your lifestyle as it relates to food. Now, one of the more successful approaches has been developed by Dr. Dean Ornish at the Cleveland Clinic. And he has the patients change their choices of their content of their diet significantly toward plants and away from meats, and gives you 1 day a week. In other words, out of 7 days, 6 days you follow his primarily vegetarian diet, but only 1 day a week you can eat anything you want to. It's called a holiday. Well, in that same Cleveland Clinic is a Dr. Esselstyn, who not only doesn't give you a day off, he even opposes plant oils, which oils are a liquid form of the fats, and there's more calories per unit of any type of oil than there is in these compounds like from wheat and rice. The same weight of the food source is not the fat has more calories in it, and you must change one's attitude and the role of what a diet is. In other words, it requires a lifestyle and an attitude change, and that works. And so often people have an attitude that, they just live to eat, they enjoy it so much, but you need to change it that you live to eat is a real problem in attitude that you've got in your mind, and you need to change that you eat only to live, not live to eat. And that's part of the thing you want to approach. Now, one of the reasons that these various efforts at drugs and diets and surgery don't work is that your subconscious mind defeats you. That actually eating is pleasure. And when you go on, do one of these things, it's like you don't hear it, but inside your body says, why are you punishing me? I haven't done anything wrong. Here you won't let me eat the things I like. And you got to change your attitude toward food. And just like in the Dean Ornish diet or the Esselstyn diet at Cleveland Clinic, you need to eat more fruits, vegetables, various kinds of nuts, various kinds of berries, and most importantly, you eat less of them, and particularly you reduce. And I feel like it's important that you don't eliminate, but you reduce carbohydrates, any kind of food that has fats or meats or pastries. If you cut them out, your subconscious mind is saying, you're punishing me. But if you can change your mindset to eat smaller portions, and very particularly smaller portions of carbohydrates, pastries, the meats and fats, work. But you must have some form of regular exercise in this modern era. And they have found that to walk 3 miles a week, it can be split up a certain amount every night or morning. Frequently people say, well, my hips or my knees or my ankles hurt or my back too bad. Well, you can consider a bicycle or even swimming as a thing, because many of these commercial gyms have a swimming pool for those people that can't do that. Then you can also, they're relatively economical, and you can even find a treadmill oftentimes at at some of your organizations that take things that people get rid of. If somebody dies and had a treadmill, it's at Goodwill, and you can get it regular, and therefore you don't have the excuse of, well, it's too hot or too cold, or it's raining or it's snowing or something. You need regular exercise to burn more calories, as well as reducing the amount of your servings. And reducing this so frequently in restaurants, if you eat there, they bring out far more on the plates than what you need. And rather than say, well, I'm going to put some aside over here and I'm going to eat half of it, and I'll, you ask for the take home container before you even start, if you can't handle it being there in front of you, and put it in that and take it and eat it in home and eat it at another meal, and reduce the amount you're eating to that meal. Now, I have found working with people that from the macrobiotic diet, you should have a mantra. And what you should do is take, what is your favorite, absolute, most wonderful food? And you should, if it goes in the refrigerator or wherever it should be, you take a very small amount of your favorite food, and you say to yourself, I am not denying myself anything I like to eat. I am reducing the amount that I eat in my servings, and I'm eating more vegetables and fruits and nuts and berries, because, and you outline different things in the future that you want to be around to be a part of. It may be some grandchild or child going to graduate or get married, or a baby's going to be born. But you say this mantra to yourself, I'm doing all these things, I'm exercising regularly, I'm changing my lifestyle because I want to be in good health, and I want to be alive when these events occur. And it should be a ritual, or almost like a mantra or a prayer of thanksgiving for what you're doing that's right, because this is a communication of your conscious mind with your unconscious mind to remove this thing of you're punishing me at your subconscious level. You're not being punished, you're being rewarded for doing all these things because of the good things that can happen in your life. You must change your mindset and have a new attitude toward dietary in your life. And you've got to eat less and burn more with exercise. And I think that mantra about having a small, very small portion of your favorite food, and as you consume it, and enjoy it, you tell all the reasons to yourself why you're doing that and the benefits that will come from this change of lifestyle. And you can overcome the resistance that you have at your core of your mind. And it's an avenue to be more successful in managing chronic obesity. Now, I made the point that I had this very opposing attitudes about how you approach patients. And I wish I could claim that with obesity being such a huge problem, that our research group back in the 1980s had this as one of our goals, but that is not the truth. Actually, the number one case that I remember back in 1994, which is an important year, because in 1994, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act was passed, which founded the dietary supplement industry, which is what we're talking about, adding to the diet nutrient molecules that used to be common in the family garden and orchard. And up in Seattle, Washington, there was an individual we called Garage Sale Ann. She was not a extremely tall, but just under 6 foot female. And there was a distributor for this dietary supplement company I was medical director for that operated by the 2 foot rule, that anybody within 2 feet of me, I tell them about the benefits of more comprehensive nutrition. And Ann was at a garage sale and was way over 200 pounds and was wearing a size 22 dress. And she obviously was not happy with her state of obesity. And for some reason, this distributor got her started on this to help the discomfort she was having in her back and hips from this excess weight. And eventually she came to meetings, and she claimed that she had tried every diet known to man, and she would have a temporary loss, but then she would gain more weight than she lost. And this era where the active ingredient from the aloe vera leaf gel that was in this dietary supplement was added to try to make her feel better. And she started losing weight without trying. And she would come to meetings, and she brought her size 22 dress that looked like a tent and waved it as proof that she stood before everyone 100 pounds less weight and in a size 12 dress. So happy. And I particularly remember her testimonies because I had no idea that a woman overweight could feel so bad about herself and have so low esteem about what they think about her. And oh, she had just like a blooming flower to be able to weigh what she did when she graduated from high school. And it really made a difference in her life and how her content of the way she talked, and just she glowed with happiness over being able to reduce this fat. Now, we had a second case that came from a male nurse in Iowa that actually was kind of shaped like an egg. And he had this huge black belt that he would bring to meetings. And he would point out that by adding the more comprehensive nutrition, he began to lose weight. And he would talk about how, particularly on Sundays and in Thanksgiving and special days, that he would eat till he was in pain. And yet I remember him saying in 2 hours, he would be back in the kitchen eating a piece of pie or cake, that he still had an appetite, which we will get into a little later, and would be gorging again. But by going on the more comprehensive nutrition, I have this model in my mind that you've got this cell, a fat cell, and you've got many of them, and they're basically wanting to say, I got too much fat in me. I got too much triglyceride. I need to send a message to the thyroid gland and to the mitochondria and to the adrenal gland to burn this excess fat and get me down to where I'm normal size and not needing bigger belts and bigger clothes all the time, and my back hurts and my hips hurts and my knees hurts and because I just weigh too much. Well, with more comprehensive nutrition, you put back into the diet molecules made in plants that the genes call for to make these molecular messages to be able to send to the thyroid gland and to the mitochondria and the muscles the message that this little fat cell wanted to say before, but now has the molecules to make the compounds to burn this excess fat. And this male nurse would bring this very long belt that eventually would go around him twice because in his shape was so much different. But listening to these people over and over again, I just gave you two examples, you begin to say they are on to something important when you consider how many people in society have a challenge of obesity. Now, the ultimate thing that happened was that in Minnesota, I was at presenting a lecture there, and after it was over, they brought a Sioux Indian that weighed over 550 pounds that was a type 2 diabetic. And he had short sewn, and his legs were bluish red up to his knees. He had multiple non-healing infected sores on both legs and to his feet. And he even had a focus of osteomyelitis. That's infection that goes down through the fatty and muscle tissues to the bone and even is inside the bone, osteomyelitis. And these wounds were unresponsive to any medical management. And he had been told they were going to have to amputate both legs above the knees. And he also had problems with his vision, with the damage to the retina from the type 2 diabetes and obesity, and kidney damage with elevation of the nitrogenous materials in his blood. And so he had very well established diabetes with obesity. And I told him what to do. And that was to take 4 scoops of the more comprehensive nutrition built around the aloe molecule of acemannan, and to best take it in yogurt and take it about 30 minutes before meals so that the message could be moved around in the body that these micronutrients were present that could be used in cellular metabolism to make the compounds to address his diabetes, his osteomyelitis, and the non-healing wounds. And so about a year later, I was again in Minnesota, and lo and behold, in walked this Indian Sioux, and he was 150 pounds lighter, that all the infections and wounds on his legs had healed. And lo and behold, his legs were pink and it was certainly still attached. He was walking on them, and he was a very happy camper. Every problem he had had improved. And this we have seen time and time again in multiple diabetic 2 patients, as it's absolutely essential that they reduce the amount of fat stores in their body because this contributes to the shift in the metabolism that is type 2 diabetes. Now, as I say, I wish we could have had this as a research goal, but it was by listening to the patients that had good benefits over and over again, which is all too often in science and medicine as an anecdotal response. And that means nothing because you didn't have a controlled study. But if you have enough anecdotal responses by enough people in different locations, it is a basis to say that this needs to be looked at more formally, because there are so many people could benefit from this. And again, when you consider how the body is put together, you could say, how in the world is this possible? Well, I have here a model of the cell, and there are different shapes and sizes in the different organs, but basically all these structures are in every cell. It's the anatomy of an animal cell, which is also of human. And one of the things I want to make a point of is how incredibly detailed and precise the biochemistry and the information stored in the DNA code of the genes operate what goes on in the cell. And you'll see arrows that go to structures there right under anatomy of the animal cell called mitochondria. Mitochondria are little fuel producing or energy producing cells that take particularly glucose and break the bond between the carbons in the glucose to transfer it to adenosine triphosphate, which has three charges of energy on it. And that is kind of like a wet cell battery, which our body runs on ATP. And it's not like a dry cell battery, but it's more like the wet cell battery in your car, because you got to have electrolytes and fluids in your serum, and all the cells are responsive. You have to have ATP to move your muscles. You have to have ATP to synthesize compounds on the assembly line that's in every cell. And we have the parts there, 1, 2, and 3 of 3 points in every cell. Called the first one is called ribosome, and then there is the endoplasmic reticulum, and then the final step of cellular synthesis is Golgi apparatus, and we'll have a cartoon here to make that a little simpler. But one of the ways the cell works is that in the nucleus, there in kind of the violet purple structure, it has a membrane around it, and all the chromosomes or the DNA are in the nucleus. And the DNA is like the program of life that is coded in the nucleic acids. And it's like the reference books in a library. You can't take the reference books out, and the DNA never leaves the membrane of the nucleus. However, just like in a library, you can take one of the books that you can't take out of the library. You can make a copy of it, and then you can take it to your room or any place you study. And so in the body, in the wisdom of the design, a copy is made of the DNA that is called RNA. Instead of desoxyribose nucleic acid, it's ribose nucleic acid. And there are 2 types of RNA. One of them is transport RNA, and the other is messenger RNA. And the transport RNA goes to a little area inside the nucleus called the nucleolus. And of all things, this transport RNA knows what the mRNA or messenger RNA will require in cellular synthesis. In other words, the amino acids, the fatty acids, the carbohydrate molecules, and the phytochemicals or phytonutrients from plants that are required on the assembly line to make compounds to run the process of life. And this is incredible in every cell. that it goes out into the fluid of the cell and then this interstitial fluid between cells and looks for these nutrient molecules and brings them in to the assembly line at the right time, and the organelles respond to the information is in the messenger RNA, which you have a little mRNA. And the point I'm trying to make is how absolutely incredible in detail this is. And before we leave this, we mentioned the mitochondria being little energy units. Well, you're well aware that in your home that periodically your hot water heater or your central heater rusts out and you have to replace it. Well, lo and behold, in the program of the DNA of the genes, there's a little cloud of glutathione and superoxide dismutase around each mitochondria, because just like your hot water heater rusts out, it comes from free radicals that are produced by making the energy. And this glutathione and superoxide dismutase binds to these free radicals so that they don't attach to membranes that are in the cell, like the membrane around the nucleus and the membrane around all the different organelles of cellular synthesis. And the worst of all, if one of these free radicals attaches to the nucleic acid or the gene, it can modify the instructions there. And so the point I'm making is how incredibly intricate the design of inside of cells is that has been provided, that again and again over these years of being focused on this, I say, how in the world did this come to be? Now, I was just telling you about the two types of RNA. They're the copies that are made of the DNA, and that the T for transport RNA seeks to bring all nutrient molecules needed at the time they're needed on the assembly line. I'll show you in a minute. And the messenger RNA gives the instructions for how these nutrients should be hooked together to make compounds that run the biochemistry and physiology of life. And this points out that not only do we have this function, but we have two audit steps that are present in the DNA, that when the messenger, the transport RNA is made, it gives information for how to make peptides or proteins, or how to put the in the first step of cellular synthesis, the amino acids together to make proteins eventually. And this audit step says, was this RNA made properly, that the protein that's going to be made was present in the maternal genes or the paternal genes, the mother or the father. And if the protein is not present there, the synthesis stops. And that's an audit step that, again, is about the intricacy and detail of how the process of life is, that again and again you have to ask the question, how in the world did this come to be? And of course, the messenger RNA that was made, there's an audit step that was the RNA properly made from the DNA, which is another audit step. And if it's not right, it's everything stops. There's a correction made, and within the cell, it tries to make the RNA properly from the DNA. And so I'm just trying to emphasize how incredible the activities within the cell are, that leads to, when it's not working right, to obesity. Now, this is a cartoon of the assembly line. It's in every cell. And the number one was the ribosome, where the RNA is pulled through it, kind of like a player piano roll to start the symphony of life. And this tells you how to hook the amino acids together for the proper proteins. Then in the second step, which is called endoplasmic reticulum, or RNA, which is the long structure at the top, the RNA comes over there and carbohydrates are added. And this is a paper from 1985 that I found in Annual Reviews of Biochemistry with over 300 references for decades of research of different individual researchers figuring out different steps in this assembly line. And in the middle, you see the biochemistry, that the significance of such is you see little blue circles. And actually in the endoplasmic reticulum, the active ingredient from the aloe vera leaf gel is acetylated mannose, for short called ace-mannan. And in the endoplasmic reticulum, once the peptide is made, 9 molecules of ace-mannan are hooked together in 3 chains to make a domain on the surface membrane of all cells. And to the left, you see it looks like little pitchforks all over the surface of it. Well, there's so many of them that if you had them all there, it'd be like shag carpet and you couldn't see them. So we just have some of them there. But that domain is for cell-to-cell communication and instructions to have harmony among all the cells in your body. There are trillions of cells in the human body, and they've all got to work together for the process of life. In this domain, on the membrane of every cell, is for homeostasis or balance within the cells. And that's why it is so powerful. And we had no idea when we started out that this acetylated mannose or ace-mannan was the active ingredient in aloe vera leaf gel, and that it would serve as such an incredibly powerful micronutrient in the process of cellular synthesis. Now, down at the bottom of the page, it is showing you all the different things that this assembly line makes for structure and function of the body. In other words, we not only have structure like the skeleton and the membranes of the cells and bone, but we also have enzymes and energy molecules, and all of these are made on this assembly line that is a well-established science about how incredible life within the cell is. And we're talking about an abnormality of this balance to store energy rather than to burn it. Now, with Dr. Lyndon Smith, pediatrician in Oregon, we worked together over the years before he died, and we interviewed individuals that it really hit us. That would say, I used to be hungry all the time. And here they are, they're like the nurse that I told you in Iowa would eat till he was in pain, and then he would find himself eating cake or pie later, stuffing more. And that transport RNA, if it cannot locate, this is a theory, if it cannot locate the nutrient that is needed on the assembly line, a message is sent to the brain, eat till you find it. And that's the basis for an appetite that is never satisfied if that nutrient is not in the diet. And by dietary supplementation, we provide from multiple sources of plants, molecules made in the plants that are used by the genes. And by adding, but through dietary supplementation, what is needed for the transport RNA, that message of eat till you find it is turned off. And so this is why individuals would tell us that they kept jelly beans on their desk, or they had in their car, or in their, many individuals said that I had chocolates in my purse. and now they're gathering dust and melting because I don't have this ceaseless appetite. Because when you take the dietary supplement like the garage sale Ann, she was no longer constantly being driven by the message to the brain, eat till you find it, because we had supplied in the dietary supplement molecules that used to be common in the family garden and orchard, where the produce was allowed to ripen on the vine, and the genes in the plant could put these nutrient molecules in there that in this day of modern era, this is not happening. So this is why we really think that there is a positive result from more comprehensive nutrition that supplies and puts into the diet through the supplement molecules, because in this day and time, I will point out that in the 1940s, when I was quite young, most of your grocery stores were owned by a local family, and they seldom sold anything that came from more than 50 miles from the store. So there were many fruits and vegetables you could only have 4 to 6 weeks a year during the growing season. Well, what has changed? Well, we have national market stores, and the agribusiness goes across the country and follows the growth zones. And lo and behold, when you could only have things for a few weeks, now you can have watermelons, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries year around. How do they do this? They follow the growth zones, and they pick the produce green so that it will have a shipping life and a shelf life. And this is before the genes put the nutrient molecules in there that the transport RNA is looking for to provide on the assembly line in the cell. And so unfortunately, the primary molecule in green produce is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is an incredibly wonderful molecule. It just is not required in cellular synthesis to make compounds to bring balance within all the cells of your systems of your body. And so by supplying, what we can do now is that this plant ripened fruit or vegetable that they used to have to throw on the ground because it'd be rotten by the time it got to the store, you can rush it to the freeze dryer and under freezing and a vacuum, take it to a powder and put it into a dietary supplement. And so those molecules that your transport RNA is looking for can be put into your dietary supplement. And this is why these individuals found out that they could lose weight. In fact, just recently, I had an email come in about a gentleman that had a touch of diabetes and some arthritic pains from aging. And not only did he get benefit from this, but he had lost between 15 and 20 pounds without trying, even though his doctor had been on him for years, trying to get him to reduce his weight. And here he was celebrating that he had lost between 15 and 20 pounds without even trying. And the reason was he could control his appetite. So you need to change your lifestyle and your attitude toward food. And also you need to add to your diet these sources of the micronutrients that are planted, that are present in plant ripened fruits and vegetables that can be put into a dietary supplement powder. And this turns off this eat till you find it message. And so I hope this information is of value to a high number of individuals that have been faced with the fact that no diet has worked for them, and maybe they've even undergone surgery and now they've eaten through that and got their weight back, that you've got to change your attitude and your lifestyle and your choices of the food that you eat, and take the attitude, I'm going to reduce portions and eat less. And I think that mantra of having something you really like, you don't deny yourself any type of food, because you don't want your subconscious to say, why are you punishing me? I don't want to be punished. I don't deserve to be punished. I want to eat what I want to eat. And I want to eat it now. Well, you need to change that attitude by that mantra that you're even eating the thing that you like more than anything else. You just eat a little bit of it, while you say to your subconscious, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm exercising to burn excess calories. I'm making better decisions about and what I'm eating. And this is the path that will work to reduce the widely spread problem of obesity in our society. And I hope that this is of value to you, and that you'll understand why adding what we have developed as a dietary supplement called New Eden, which not only takes the technology of the Ace Mannion from the aloe leaf gel, but molecules from other plants that are not eaten very well in our society, because we don't like cruciferous vegetables all that much. We don't eat a lot of cabbage, turnips, broccoli, or cauliflower, and you can't even threaten a child enough to eat it because it's kind of got a little burn to it, and it's from the sulfur molecules that are in cruciferous vegetables. Well, you can put that in a powder and put it in New Eden and mix it with yogurt. And particularly if you're overweight, take it about 30 minutes before the meal starts so it can circulate around and turn off that messenger that's going to your brain from your transport RNA saying, eat till you find this molecule that's needed in cellular synthesis, because you've included it in your diet. Well, thank you for this time to tell you about this, because I think it's very important for everyone to know it. Thank you very much.